I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Poland advances its controversial Holocaust bill. Netanyahu meets with Germany's foreign minister after snubbing him last year. And close your eyes because an American-Israeli athlete is about to compete in the Winter Olympics' most dangerous sport. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Despite Poland's promise to work with Israel to fix its controversial Holocaust bill, the Polish Senate has just voted and approved the legislation in its current form with massive support. It now only needs to be signed by Poland's president to become a law, who has already voiced his support for it. And as you might imagine, Israel is outraged. This bill has erupted a wave of outrage from Israel and Jewish organizations all over the world. As written, it would criminalize anyone who uses the term Polish death camp to refer to Nazi concentration camps within Poland, including the infamous Auschwitz. Poland says this is merely a necessary means to fight slander against their country, but many experts argue that it dangerously rewrites an incredibly dark chapter in human history and purposely clouds the role many Polish people willingly played in helping execute Hitler's horrific final solution in Poland.
Mieliśmy spotkanie kierownictwa partii. Rozmawialiśmy długo o tej sytuacji, którą jesteśmy, nie ukrywam, bardzo zasmuceni, zaskoczeni, również zdziwieni, że nasza walka o prawdę, o godność Polaków jest tak interpretowana i tak odbierana.
Poland's prime minister had previously promised to work with Prime Minister Netanyahu on rewriting the future drafts of the bill. But clearly that has very much not happened. Israeli lawmakers are now considering passing new Israeli laws in response to this Polish legislation. The first would grant immediate legal defense to anyone prosecuted under the incoming law. And the second would assign harsher punishments against Holocaust deniers or the act of those who collaborated with the Nazis during the Holocaust. Joining us now with more on the Polish Holocaust bill is Likud Knesset Member Sharren Haskel. Thanks for joining us.
It is a pleasure. Good evening, and good evening to all the viewers.
Now, Sharren, will the new law really contribute to historical revisionism?
Well, this law prevents the freedom of speech and the freedom to review history as it happened. If we look, we can see there was probably about between 3 to 7% of Polish people who, yes, they were part of the underground who was fighting the Nazis. They were some of the most who were pushing the Nazis out and rebelling against them. The Polish people suffered as well, whether in camps, in torture. Their children were taken away from them and kidnapped. But with that, you also have between probably 3 to 7% who cooperate with the Nazis, who have committed crime against Jews, who committed crime against humanity. And as much as it's important to speak about the one who were heroes, who saved and who fought against, it is also important to teach the younger generation on the one who cooperate with the Nazis as well.
So what can Israel actually do about this law?
Well, there's not much. We have a strong friendship and bonds with Poland. I'm sure that we will sit in a committee and discuss. It really hurt the feelings of the Israeli people. And as a representative, we took offense to that as well. I hope that in recent talks that we will have between the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of Poland, we'll be able to, they will review the legislation and maybe change it and push it back.
Now, what effect would Israel's response have?
Well, Israel's response from all around the aisle, from left and right, even with the Arab list, condemned this legislation. We actually took offense to it because when you do look on what happened through the Second World War, you do understand that, yes, the Polish were very much some of the ones who were leading the fight against the Nazis. Yes, Poland was conquered and occupied by Nazis, but at the same time, there were a minority that were cooperating, murdering innocent people, murdering Jews, committing hate crimes against Jews, not just in Poland, but in other countries. We're really worried that maybe that will spread to other countries as well, and we take a personal offense to that.
All right, Knesset Member Sharon Haskel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has just met with Germany's foreign minister during his trip to the Middle East. With Israel and the Palestinians still very far away from the negotiating table, Europe remains committed to finding a two-state solution, regardless of how remote that may now seem.
The basis and objective of our engagement is and remains the two-state solution, with Jerusalem as future capital of both states, the State of Israel and the State of Palestine. Any framework for negotiations must be multilateral and must involve all players, all partners that are essential to this process. A process without one or the other would simply not work, would simply not be realistic.
This position is exactly what Germany's foreign minister has discussed with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Famously, Netanyahu actually snubbed a meeting with him last year to protest the German leader's decision to also meet with the NGO group Breaking the Silence. That elephant in the room was most likely not brought up so that the larger issue of overall regional peace could be discussed.
As Germans and as Europeans, we want to keep the JCPOA on the one hand side, but we know that there are a lot of difficult developments ongoing coming from Iran, and we should address it, and we should push Iran to different positions from Yemen to Lebanon. That's our position. Maybe we have some difficult opinions on the JCPOA itself, but we have no different opinions about the behavior of Iran in the region.
Germany's foreign minister has continued his tour to meet with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas as well, where both leaders stressed the difficulty of advancing peace talks and the role that Europe would likely need to play to get there.
Germany is looking forward to the day when it will be able to move its embassy to Israel to Jerusalem. But let me add, in two states with Jerusalem as their capital. There is no shortcut here. Both parties have legitimate aspirations with regard to Jerusalem, and a solution can only be found in negotiations.
Well, with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza quickly approaching disastrous new levels, Israel has approved an emergency shipment of power generators into the Strip to relieve the pressure. Officials say at least 7 hospitals in Gaza have had to shut down because of a lack of fuel, making this shipment of generators a critical life-saving delivery. ILTV's Aaron Porras is here with a report. Now, Aaron, how did Israel come to this decision?
Well, this decision was actually decided by a committee that convened in Brussels recently, and it was joined by American, Israeli, Palestinian, Egyptian, and European leaders. And this latest decision is just a part of a series of decisions that Israel has stated it's willing to approve, as long as Hamas and other terrorist organizations don't take advantage of it or misuse them.
Right. Now, this is part of the $1 billion plan that Israel announced recently, correct?
That is correct, which, as you know, then means that Israel has created the plan, designed the plan, but they're not willing to fund it. They're looking for foreign funding for this plan. And some of that funding has already actually trickled in, and should the rest of it come in, we're talking about projects involving expanding the electricity grid, sewage treatment, water desalination, and much more.
All right, well, let's check out your report.
The power shortage in Gaza is just one of many decaying infrastructures, and international leaders have just convened to address this mounting crisis, which the United Nations warns is about to verge on a total system collapse, with a special emphasis placed on President Trump's controversial decision to slash nearly half of its funding to the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNRWA. Israel has placed special security restrictions on the generators to ensure that they will not be used for terror. In a separate incident, Israeli security forces have just arrested a 14-year-old Palestinian girl who was visiting Jerusalem without the proper permits. Police told her that they would drop her off near her home in the West Bank, just a few miles north of Israel, but instead they sent her to Gaza, apparently without telling her beforehand. The girl's lawyer says that the girl has never even stepped foot inside the Gaza Strip.
For the first time in the agency's history, Israel has opened an official criminal investigation into alleged brutality committed by Shin Bet interrogators. Israelis have long been picketing for the Justice Department to look into these allegations, and more than 1,000 have been filed against the Shin Bet in the last 17 years. Though committees have investigated some of the complaints in the past, the state has been reluctant to open an official state probe. That's because both the police's internal investigations department and the Justice Department's Miftan unit assigned to the matter must jointly do it. Israel's Attorney General is also rumored to have been personally involved here. The probe will now look into an interrogation conducted by the Shin Bet back in 2015. Details are tight, but based on previous complaints, the accusations are likely to include possible brutality, excessive force, or even torture. Israeli society has been furiously divided on whether or not security teams should be allowed to use such tactics in investigations. One side argues that the ends justifies the means if it prevents terror attacks, but the other side argues that both international law and Jewish ethics make it wrong, especially since there are allegations that the Shin Bet is also applying such tactics against Jewish detainees. Needless to say, news of this criminal probe is certainly destined to reignite the debate. We often buy jewelry for the ones that we love to show our appreciation for them, but our next guest went way beyond by giving each other an entire jewelry company. Joining me in the studio now are Ginat and Yisgav Rotem, the co-founders of Hot Crown. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so tell us this story. How did you guys come about and create this brand?
Well, it was like a very typical story of two people that are going to work every day, and at the end of the day, they're just miserable, you know, in their daily
9 to 5,
job.
yeah, the typical 9 to 5 that makes you
Yes, exactly.
suffer. All right, so you guys, you're a designer, right, Ginat?
Actually, it's Yisgav.
Yisgav is a designer.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So how did you put your heads together to come up with a jewelry brand more specifically?
Well, it was a funny story because his occupation is basically accountant, a CPA.
Okay.
And
I was working at KPMG, and I always wanted to do something like with a more added value, something that will makes me and the other environment much happier.
Well, for sure, when anybody gets a jewelry gift, they're happy. I can tell you that firsthand. So what kind of jewelry products do you offer? I see we have necklaces here, earrings.
Yes, we design and create everything by ourselves, and we use gold metals, 14 karat, 18 karat gold metals, and diamonds, and rubies and emeralds, and basically
and so you have a store here in Tel Aviv, right?
In Dizengoff.
On Dizengoff Street, one of the main streets here. But do you sell online as well for those
yes.
who are... Okay,
so
so
the website.
Hotcrown.com.
Hotcrown.com, okay, for those who are interested in getting it. And I understand that you also advertise conflict-free diamonds, right?
Right.
We do. It's very important for us to be sure that everything, all of our diamonds are conflict-free, so we can be relaxed that we're not into...
How do you ensure that?
We have a contract with our
like a Kimberly?
No,
yeah, Kimberly, okay.
We have like a contract with our supplier that they assured us.
That.
Yeah,
okay, very beautiful. All right, so I mean, listen, this is beautiful, beautiful stuff here. I can tell our viewers that I've seen it myself firsthand. My friends love buying jewelry from your store. For those of you who are interested in buying, go to hotcrown.com, right?
Yeah, and it's free shipping worldwide.
Free shipping worldwide. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, Israelis were glued to their TV screens last night for the finale of Israel's X Factor. Audiences all over the country erupted into applause when the judges named 17-year-old Ethiopian Israeli Eden Alin as this season's winner. If you need proof of just how amazing this girl can sing, check out this cover of Christina Perri's Human, which won her a record deal last night. Not so hard to see why she's a winner, right? Already destined for stardom, the teen first broke the internet with her cover of Demi Lovato's Stone Cold before going on to win Israel's heart on this season of The X Factor. 17-year-old Aline was raised by a single ultra-Orthodox mom in Jerusalem, but as a single parent, Times were tough. Aline attended religious schools up until high school, but keeps the Sabbath at home with her mother, despite observing a more secular lifestyle. Mom was there to proudly watch her daughter win the final showdown, scoring her a recording contract and all kinds of international fame. Aline hopes that her performances will help raise awareness among Israelis about the Ethiopian community and dreams of coexistence between Arabs and Jews. Oh, and she also dreams of singing with Beyonce someday. All right, the Winter Olympics kick off in South Korea next week, and Israel will be sending one of its top athletes to compete in an event so dangerous I can't even believe it's an Olympic sport, skeleton sledding. But get this, the star athlete only discovered the sport a couple of years ago, and he learned how to do part of it from just watching YouTube videos.
Meet Adam Edelman, the man who's about to rep Israel at the 2018 Olympic Games in Pyeongchang. Originally a hockey player, Edelman caught a TV spot about skeleton sledding, and perhaps in one of the all-time craziest Zionist moves ever, he made Aliyah and made it his personal mission to someday represent Israel as a professional skeleton athlete. His Instagram handle says it all. You can check him out at Israel Skeleton. But icy high-speed ramps are pretty hard to come by here in the typically hot Holy Land. That's why he also spent tons of hours off of the ice watching YouTube videos to help him train. No trainer required. Wipeouts and crashes come with the terrain, but despite his Jewish mother's concerns, Edelman rose through the ranks of Israel's skeleton sledding scene, quickly becoming one of the country's top athletes in the sport. We're all psyched to watch him compete in blue and white at the Winter Olympics later this month, even if we have to watch through our fingers.
Just 1 year ago, we introduced you to the incredible music of the violinist Tanya Vinokul. Well, now Tanya is back with an all-new single and album that are set to come out later this year. Tanya, thank you for joining us.
Hi,
I see you already have the violin ready.
Yes.
Can we hear a little something just
It's
to start?
always ready, of course.
Beautiful. All right, we can honestly just, let this happen throughout the entire interview. I think we'd probably enjoy that more than hearing us talk. But tell us a little bit about your upcoming single and your album.
Well, my upcoming single is called Mama Liga, and it's a cornbread from Moldova. This is where I'm from originally. So yeah, so lately I've been taking some pause from touring and from performing, and I took the time to go back to my roots and to compose the music and to reconnect with my art. And this beautiful project came out, and it's a fusion of Latin music that I'm doing for a very long time with Oriental style and also Gypsy music.
Well, I love the kind of mix of styles that you have in your music.
Thank you.
So you said that you're from Moldova, right?
Yeah.
So what makes, and this is something that's going to be we're going to hear in this new album, but what makes this album different from your past albums?
Well, this is the thing. When I was a child, I remember when I was 4 or 5 years old. First of all, my parents, both of them are musicians. My mom plays the violin and my father played the cello. So I grew up listening to classical music at home, but also gypsy music because they were also playing in a gypsy band. And this combination stuck in my head for such a long time. And only recently, after touring around the world and doing so many beautiful projects, only recently I felt the urge to go back to that.
So here's my question for you. Yeah. When can we hear this new single of yours?
So it's gonna be presented for the first time in my show on Wednesday, next Wednesday, 7th of April, in the place called The Zone. It's gonna be a very special concert because I'm gonna be accompanied with my band that is playing with me for the past 12 years, but also we're collaborating with this beautiful musician. His name is Adir Kochavi. He's a trumpet player, and he has his own project of fusion music as well.
Beautiful.
And so we're going to do 2 shows in one night. And also we're going to
and you said February 7th, right?
Yeah.
February 7th, my friends. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Tanya.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you're hungry because we're about to take you into the inner workings of one of the oldest and perhaps most important restaurants in Israel. Some of the country's most influential people, like former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, have been frequenting this Greek establishment for the last 80 years. What's the key to closing the perfect deal? Sealing it over a glass of ouzo. Yamas! This is Olympus Restaurant. You may not have ever heard of it before, but let's just say for some very important Israeli figures, this has been their best kept secret.
אנחנו משפחת נחמן, הדוד של אבא שלי, הוא פתח את המסעדה ב-1932. מעל ל-80 שנה המסעדה קיימת. באים מהכנסת, באים אנשי עסקים של האוכל. ביי. ביי יונה. ביי, להתראות דורון. משפחה מסלוניקי. ההורים שלי היו בשואה, שניהם. הם הכירו אחרי השואה, אבל שניהם היה להם מספר מאושוויץ.
After the war, they came to Israel, where they joined the family business and found a way to maintain their Greek identity in the Jewish state.
האוכל היווני הוא אוכל מנחם. הוא אוכל שאת יודעת, הם עברו דברים קשים, אז הוא קציצת פרסה, עכשיו הוא אוכל, הוא נזכר, אז את יודעת, מעלים לו זיכרונות.
אנשים שאכלו פה בתור ילדים קטנים שבאו עם ההורים שלהם, והיום הם בני 80-90.
The Nachmans cook everything themselves, and when I say everything, I mean everything.
זה עבודות יד. אין לנו לא מכונות, לא עלי גפן, שגלגלנו אנחנו מגלגלים ביד. את המוסקה אנחנו מתגנים את החצילים, זאת אומרת, הכל עבודות יד.
אם אני רוצה להיות חלק ממשפחה, אני חייבת להגיע לפה ב-5 בבוקר.
אנחנו הבעלים, אנחנו הטבחים, אנחנו המלצרים, אנחנו הגובים של הכסף גם.
ואם אין עובדים, אנחנו גם שוטפי כלים. אנחנו עושים הכל.
This is the only restaurant in Israel that my grandmother agrees to come to. She says this is the only place that really knows how to make good home-cooked food.
הוא דור המשך.
דור הבא אני.
ויש לך ילד כבר?
ילדה.
יש לי ילדה בת חודש, כן.
והיא תהיה...
אני מקווה שלא.
היא תהיה...
שתלמד.
היא תהיה פיזיקאית.
I guess I'll have to join the family and take over.
Israelis like to think that they're the leaders of, well, everything, but here are the top 5 things that they're actually right about. At number 1, welcome to the startup nation. Israel not only has the most startups per capita, the country also has the highest rate of entrepreneurship among women and among people over the age of 55 in the world. It looks like this is where you want to be if you want to live a long and fulfilling life or never retire. Next, at number 2, college degrees. Yes, there are a lot of entrepreneurs in Israel, but not everybody is Mark Zuckerberg. In fact, Israel has the highest ratio of college degrees in regards to its population. Let's not forget some of the universities over here rank among the top in the world. Now at number 3, we have books. It looks like Israelis can't seem to get their noses out of them. Israel has published more books that were translated from other languages than any other country in the world. But don't worry, there's a lot of original writing over here as well. In fact, Israel produces the 2nd highest amount of new books per capita on the planet. Now coming in at number 4, solar energy. Let's just say it gets hot in Israel. So it's no surprise that Israel has the highest percentage of homes in the world that use solar energy for water heating, a whopping 93%. At least there's something positive the burning sun over here can contribute to society. Now finally at number 5, we have vegans. You guessed it, Israel has the most vegans per capita in the world. 5% of the country is vegan and 8% is vegetarian, which means you may want to start changing your diet to fit in. It's certainly more ethical. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. From vegans to startups, Israel is leading the pack in all kinds of ways. So today's word is maleh, which means being full of something or abundant. Yep, Israel may be on the smaller side, but the little country is maleh, or full, with more college diplomas, solar energy, and home computers per capita than any other nation in the world. Tel Aviv also has the highest per capita of dogs than any other city, which means we are maleh with puppies. And I think it's fair to say that because of all of this, Israelis also happen to be maleh with pride or oversized egos. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear and with a slight rise in temperatures. The low will be about 48 or 9 degrees Celsius. Temperatures are expected to continue to rise throughout the weekend to a high of about 71 or 22 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.42 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.